We are hearing this morning from a carer in Rotherham who says she struggled to buy food as she was only paid for 6 hours work a day despite doing 10. And it's all because her previous employer didn't pay for her travel time in between clients. And she's not alone. A new report has found thousands of care workers across Yorkshire are being illegally underpaid. Aslia Walsh has been a carer for 3 years and now works for a company that do pay for travel time. She's been telling Ellie her story.
I started care originally when I was 18, worked in a care home, ended up leaving there and going to my last company on January of this year. Worked there, kind of just did my induction and everything like that. Wasn't kind of aware of all the mileage or payments, kind of didn't really know how it worked. Just got told how much you're going to get paid hourly and then what you're going to get for mileage. Wasn't really told or informed that you should have been getting paid in between calls. Didn't really know anything about that. Worked there until obviously May of this year. Towards the end of me working at that company, I kind of realised that I should have been getting paid for time between calls and that, you know, it was kind of money that I was losing out on. You know, you could be out 12 hours and getting paid for 8. So that was that couple of hours that you're losing out on. You know, you're kind of working for free in that essence.
Take me through what a day might look for you. How many people are you seeing? How long do you then spend travelling as well?
So on average, you could have anywhere between 15 and 30 clients. It really just depended on the area that you would be in. Obviously, you could be in one area for half the day and go to a different area for the rest of the day. So on average for me, I'd have around 20-ish calls a day. They might be the same clients, they might be different clients. It just, again, depend on the area. But yeah, around 20-ish calls. And again, you could be out from 6 o'clock in the morning until 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. You had to make yourself available until 11 o'clock at night, which if you've got kids, it's not always realistic. And then again, travel time for the total day could accumulate to over 2 hours, 2-3 hours, that obviously you're not getting paid for.
That is so outrageous, honestly. I don't know any other job where you could work 12 hours and only get paid for 8, 9, 10 even. You know, you give or take an hour unpaid lunch break. It's different in different places, but that's not a lunch break. You're driving, you know, you're working. What made you decide to call this out and how did you?
So as time went on, I kind of realised something's not right because, again, you look at your pay slips, you look at the amount of calls that you're doing, and again, I don't know if every single person in care does this, but I kind of work out how many hours I'm working a week, times that by a rough amount so you know kind of what you're getting. At first I spoke to the office about it and I just kind of said, you know, something's not adding up. I don't know what it is, but I know something's not adding up because I know I'm not getting paid 100% somewhere. But time between calls, pay time was not brought up at that point because I didn't fully know that was a thing at that time. Anyway, did a bit of research, talked to a couple of friends that work in different care companies. They made me aware that time in between calls plus mileage should be paid. So I went back to the office and I said, I'm only getting paid mileage. I'm not getting paid time between calls. They kind of gave the ultimatum of, well, you've got to be available and unfortunately this is your job whether you're working for free or not. So you either work for free in essence or you clearly don't care about your clients, like walk, in other words. So that's when I kind of, you know, went on Indeed and walked in essence because I was like, I'm not being showing up like that and treated in that way just because they don't want to pay you for a job that you're doing.
Can we also say that she's 22 years old? First of all, you've got such a wise head on your shoulders. I can't believe that you've been through all of this. And in that moment where you were basically being told this and you knew it was wrong, you must have been so angry.
It is frustrating because you kind of feel like you're getting taken the mick out of. You know, at the end of the day, you've got people to support, you've got yourself to support, you've got kids to support, you've got house, food. You know, the world isn't cheap. Unfortunately, you know, things go up, you know, you've got a life to pay for and you don't want to be, you know, scrumbling your last bits of money or having to rely on friends or family to get by. Your job should be able to supply for it. And then when you find out that you're doing all this care work, which is a lot more difficult than a lot of people kind of see it as, you realise you're not getting paid properly for it. It's kind of like, you know, a kick, you know, it kind of like a stab in the heart. It is upsetting.
Just drive that home for people as well who don't know what these calls for care look like. What kind of things would you be doing for people and helping them with?
So long story short, you in essence, when you're in a client's home for military care, you are responsible for their life. You could walk in and they're completely fine, you know, they're all right, they're eating, they're talking, and then within a split second of milliseconds, they could fall to the floor and have a seizure. So you need to know 100% of the time that your attention has to be on them and that anything could change. You know, they could have a seizure, they could start being sick, anything could happen, you know, someone's condition, there's a reason they have care, you know, for whatever health condition it is or mental condition that they have, anything can change in the blink of an eye. So in essence, you've got to be there 24/7 when you're in that care call in case anything happens. You're responsible for their life, basically, whether that's food, private care, physical care, medication, making sure that they take the medication without throwing up, making sure that they have the emotional support because it's upsetting if they don't have family, if they have help with financial support. You're responsible for their entire life, and that's someone's mum, dad, sister, brother. It's a big weight on your shoulders, you know, because if something happens to them in that call, it's you who's got to resuscitate them if you can before the paramedics get there.
And to do all this and then not even be getting paid properly for what you're doing is crazy. Dan Archer is here, the director of the National Association of Care and Support Workers. Dan, how common is this story?
Ellie, unfortunately, it's frighteningly common. We have data gathered from the website fairercarerpay.co.uk. Over 3 years worth of data, 2,000 carers surveyed, and it shows that 71.8% of care workers are actually paid illegally because they're not paid the legal minimum wage because of driving during the day. Now, in the Yorkshire and Humberside region, that's 51,000 workers we're talking about. So Alicia's story is absolutely terrible. It's work, I believe, that people should be paid more than minimum wage for, but absolutely everybody should be guaranteed to be able to get at least the minimum.
Why do you think there are certain organisations that are getting away or trying to find a loophole through this?
I think there's a funding issue in our sector, but the biggest issue I think for government is one of compliance. This is about ensuring that people are adhering to the legislation that they should be adhering to, and there are thousands and thousands of care providers across the country. So I've got a lot of sympathy for government in trying to do something about it. They're trying to increase the compliance. They've got a Fair Work agency that they're introducing. They're looking at a fair pay agreement for the care sector. The problem, I think, though, is that they're underestimating the degree to which this problem exists. So I wrote to the Minister for State for Social Care, who's Stephen Kinnock, and his response to me, he said it's a shame that the minority of providers spoil it for the majority. Now, last time I checked, 71.8% is actually the majority, so this problem is widespread.
What do you think, Dan, needs to be done ultimately to stop this happening? Is it just funding the NHS more?
I think it's funding and it's compliance. So Wes Streeting announced at the Labour Party conference £500 million of additional funding by 2028. The problem is, based on the data that we have, the cost of getting the workforce just to the legal minimum wage today is £2.2 billion. So that, again, absolutely suggests that government haven't fully understood the degree to which this practice is widespread.
Alicia and Dan there. Alicia, a carer who was underpaid for her time travelling between clients in her car. You can read more about this story on the BBC News website or the app. If you just click on South Yorkshire, this story will come up, and it'll also be on Look North this evening.